interview with Changpeng Zhao. If you could all please take your seats, get situated and ready for our next session so that we can begin. CZ, as he is sort of more commonly known, is a man who probably needs very little introduction. He's the founder of Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange by volume, which he started in 2017. He regularly shares his thoughts on crypto regulation and business with his 8+ million followers on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm Alice Forward. I'm the Wall Street editor for The Economist, and in recent years I've spent a lot of time writing about crypto. So please join me in giving CZ a very, very warm welcome to Bahrain and to the stage. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to see you. It's great to be with you here in Bahrain. I hear you come here pretty often.
Yes, I do. This is probably my 7th, 8th trip here in the last year or so.
Yeah, so a familiar place. Today's panel has been billed as a response to critics, so a chance for you to give us your perspective on crypto, what critics of the industry and critics of your exchange are getting wrong. It's a pretty happy time to be a critic of crypto. You know, token market cap is down to about 1/3 of what it was at its peak. Sam Bankman-Fried is currently on trial. Other founders of failed crypto projects like Do Kwon or Justin Zhu have been arrested or jailed. You know, if you're someone who thinks crypto's rotten through and through, you've got a lot of evidence to point to. So why are those people wrong?
I think this is actually also a good time to defend crypto because now all those bad actors in crypto are kind of getting caught. So there's a cleansing in the industry. In any new industry, there are always bad players, right? So we can attack Wall Street because of the Madoff, because of, we can attack traditional industries because some bad players are also there. So I think we shouldn't define an industry just by what's bad about it, right? So what are the bad players? Just by the fact that they are bad players. We should define the industry on what good things the industry can do, right? This is a new technology for money. This is a new technology for economics. This is the future of fintech. And just because those bad players are now singled out and identified, we can say, hey, how are we different, right? So there is no fraud on Binance. We didn't take customer money to do something else. There are many good platforms that's still left standing. So we can learn from their mistakes and try to avoid it. And regulators can say, like, well, those are bad, and those are specific actions they did are bad. We're going to ban it, and we're going to make regulations according to that. So now we have case studies to learn from. So mistakes are, they're bad players and they're mistakes, and those are things we can learn from. So we're not saying that this industry is perfect. Yes, no problems. But every industry can be said about the same thing. So I think we're at a humbling period in this industry that we can learn from and continue to grow.
And what is the most sort of compelling reason or need for crypto that you think is sort of worth fighting for?
It's just a better technology. It's a more efficient form of money, value transfer, value formation. It's just a better technology. It's more efficient. It's lower cost. It's easier to use. It's cross-border. It's has high potential for more adoption. Given all of those, it can facilitate much higher volumes of transactions, much bigger economies, much more global economies. And the fact that we can do micropayments means that we can facilitate new different type of business models. All of those are hugely important for the future of economies. So not looking at this technology is like bookstores don't want to look at internet. They say, oh, the bookstores work fine. Why do we need internet? So yeah, I think it's at that level of impact.
And in terms of it being a sort of better technology, is that for payments, for finance, for everything? Sort of where are the boundaries of it being better?
I definitely wouldn't say it's for everything. No technology is for everything, right? So there's many people who there are many people who are very passionate about this technology that says, well, this technology can solve all problems in the world. No, that doesn't work. No technology does that. The best technologies are used for their specific purposes. Mm-hmm. I think for blockchain is really more related to what we call today money or value transfers. So from entrepreneurs looking for investments, you can fundraising. You can raise money very easily on using the blockchain technologies, what people call ICOs, IEOs, etc. Transfer of value across borders, and micropayments. So today most of the use cases are dealing with value transfers. Later on, I think the technology can be expanded into like other areas people are already identifying, like NFTs, gaming, anything that requires proof. Land title deeds, notarizations. So many of those areas will get there. But today, it's much more focused on financial applications.
Okay, and just turning back to what you sort of mentioned in your first answer about things that you might have learned from the sort of failures of other firms. I guess if we zoom in on crypto exchanges, obviously in the history of crypto, there have been a sort of a fair number of ones that have blown up. The most spectacular is, of course, FTX, and which failed last November. You had a sort of a long history with Sam and FTX. You know, you helped him to get started when he launched the exchange, and later when it collapsed, you sort of sold off some of the tokens, or you intended to sell off some of the tokens that you'd hold. Knowing what you know now, is there anything you would do differently for your sort of own actions in that saga?
Well, absolutely. I will get much less involved. Knowing what we know now, I don't think we would have invested at all, or even went anywhere near it. Also, even after that, even knowing what we know, like actually we didn't get to sell much of the FTT tokens. We still hold a very large bag of it. I think we sold like, I don't know, 10-20% of it max. So we still have like 80% of FTT tokens, which is zero. Some people accuse us of that may be a trigger out of many triggers that may have triggered it. I obviously did not agree. But looking back, there's many things we can avoid. We can also tell people much more early on. Just say, look, we need to do proof of reserves for every crypto exchange much earlier. But we can't force them to do so. They adopted a wallet structure that's much more opaque. It makes it very hard for people to track their wallets. Now we understand why, but at the time we didn't know. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I think the key lessons are, crypto exchanges should have 100% proof of reserves, and this is very easy to do using blockchain technology, to do it very transparently, and regulators should demand that for every exchange that's regulated. So this solved the biggest problem that we learned, which is safe holding of customer assets. And also, in recent lawsuits we have with the SEC in the US, we have proven that, well, they have zero evidence that they make allegations about commingling of user funds that they have zero evidence for. So which actually helps us to prove that we don't do it, right? So with all this criticism, there's also validation. It actually helps us in many other areas, saying, look, we're a different type of crypto exchange. Just because we're both crypto exchanges, it doesn't mean we're the same.
I guess if you're sort of looking at FTX and Binance, you can point to some sort of maybe superficial similarities between the firms, other than just being sort of crypto exchanges. So, you know, FTX was headquartered offshore, you're headquartered sort of nowhere. In general, there is some sort of opacity in sort of how the exchange works. There's sort of some regulation, but unregulated in sort of the big markets like the US and much of Europe. And you know, one of the ways in which FTX blew up is that its sister firm Alameda had made sort of various liquid venture capital investments, and Binance also has a sort of venture capital investing arm. So, you know, on those facts, people couldn't trust Sam. Why should they trust you?
Well, I think there's a few things that people confuse about. Just because we're both crypto exchanges just because Madoff is a VC doesn't mean every other VC is bad, right? And also we're very much onshore in many places, including in Bahrain, right? So we have a license here. We're fully regulated here. We're fully regulated, in 18 different other districts regions as well. So we actually have the largest number of licenses or registrations, which actually also means we have gone through the most scrutiny, and we're most scrutinized by default already, by media, by regulators, etc. So there are some very strong differences, and also even Alameda, right? Just because Alameda lost a lot of money doesn't mean every algo quant trading firm loses money. There's a larger number of them do. Large number of businesses do lose money because they're not well run. But there are many very well-run hedge funds, quant trading firms, etc. Binance doesn't have our own quant trading firm. We don't trade for profit, etc. We do have some liquidity provision affiliates, but those are not trading for profits. So, but there are other guys who do that as a profitable business that's well run. So just because some business is not well run, doesn't mean other businesses are bad. Yeah.
So, what are the sort of material ways in which you think Binance is structured differently than FTX?
I think there's so many differences, right? So I think structurally, we are now the most licensed crypto exchange in the world. So we are embracing crypto regulation by actions. I think compared to FTX talked a good game, but they don't have that many. They don't have that many licenses, and also they basically lied about a large number of things. We don't do that. I think lying is fraud. So we don't. We're pretty. Even though our structure globally was a little bit fluid at the beginning, we don't lie about things, right? So we're very transparent with our users. We're very transparent with our regulators. So we are building multiple regional hubs as well as we speak. So there's some very fundamental differences, and also based on the limited stuff I know about them, they don't even know where their money are, right? So we internally operate a very fairly transparent financial accounting standards. We know where all the funds are. Yeah, it's just very different. And also, uh, Binance is much larger. Binance is not run by me. Right? So whereas if you look in the Sam Bankman story, a very small number of people there know where the money is. On a day-to-day basis, I'm not involved in the money part of Binance, right? So the exchange will run fine without me involved. I'm here doing like interviews like this. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm doing all the useless stuff. So we're running the company in very different ways. We are much more systematic. I'm not the bottleneck. I don't control much information. Actually, in fact, I actually don't have access to our backend system. So the backend system where you see how much money each user has, how you look at their KYC information, I don't have access to that. Whenever I need to get information, I need to ask somebody to get information for me. So I try to have as little access to the system as possible. So I try to have as little authority as possible. So yeah.
So, who do you ask? Like your compliance officer, or?
I do have a large number of direct reports. I have like 24 of them. I typically ask them for reports. I almost never ask for specific users' information. Not my friends, not anybody on Binance. So if you ask me, hey, can you look at this guy's account information or lock this account? I don't have access to it, right? So I don't have access to lock accounts. I don't have access to unlock accounts. Everything's done by somebody else. Yeah.
Okay, one last question on FTX, then we'll move on. Have you been watching any of the trial coverage?
No, I have not. But I do. I'm active on Twitter, so I see a few Twitter accounts tweeting bits and pieces of it. I think that's as much as I need to know. I try not to get I'm already too involved. The people already think I'm too involved, so I'm trying to not to get too involved there. And I also try to hold off the urge on commenting on that, because if I read too much of it, there may be an urge to comment, which I will try not to do. Yeah.
Okay, so you've mentioned a couple ways that exchanges can sort of prove that they're safe or sort of reassure users that their sort of money is being looked after. One is proof of reserves, and the other one is sort of getting licenses with regulators. Obviously, you mentioned also that the SEC has filed a complaint against Binance, arguing that you are sort of an unregistered or unlicensed securities exchange in America because you list many tokens that it thinks are securities, and they essentially think you're just sort of pretending to keep US customers away. I guess before we get into the details of the arguments in that case and ways to make exchanges safe, can I ask, where were you when the SEC sort of complaint came in? What were you doing? Did you know that it was coming?
We had some indications it might be coming. I was in the UAE at the time, so we had some indications. I think both sides have lawyers talking to each other for a bit before that, and so we had some indications, but you were never sure, right? So I don't want to comment too specifically about that specific case.
Yeah.
But typically in this types of situations, you have the lawyers talking to each other for a while, and then people try to negotiate a deal or resolution before you have to go to that extreme. And then in the negotiation, there always is a negotiation, and then there's like certain demands or not. If you meet them, not meet them, and then they may do certain things or not do certain things. You never know when it's going to be filed publicly. So we have some indications, but not for sure. Yeah.
And what was your reaction when it came out?
Well, I think we just got to deal with the issues that's thrown at us. I think, look, we let the lawyers deal with that. I think we're in a strong position that most of the allegations made, I think, does not have a strong base. I think whether crypto is a security or not, that's debated as an industry-wide issue. The attacks on commingling of funds just does not exist. So I think the truth will eventually come out, and we're pretty confident about it.
I guess in the complaint, they sort of paint a different picture of Binance than the one that you've sort of outlined, saying that you are registered in many countries and you attempt to sort of comply with a lot of the rules. They had a couple of interesting quotes from some of that were allegedly sort of said by some internal people at Binance, such as we're operating an expletive unlicensed securities exchange in the US, bro. Was that ever the position that Binance sort of took on these issues, or how do you square those two sort of perceptions of the firm?
So short answer is no. That's not the position Binance has taken. The first time I saw that chat was on Twitter. This is a private chat about one one employee who communicated something with some. It was a private chat between him and one of his guys, I think. I don't know the context. I have not seen the full chat log, so I can't really comment on it. It's not the right thing to say by far. But I can't comment on why they say certain things, etc. So, but it's not the platform's position. Yeah.
And the SEC, through its lawsuits against you and also a similar one against Coinbase, it seems to be saying essentially it is not legal to trade crypto here, and it maybe never will be. And they think most tokens are securities. That's obviously sort of an industry discussion, and therefore that firms like yourself would need to register. But it's almost impossible to register as a firm doing all the things that you do. Do you think there is a world in which it could become legal to be sort of fully licensed and registered in the US?
Well, without in the U.S. part, yes, there's definitely a world where crypto exchanges are fully licensed, fully operating, etc. My understanding is again, my understanding on this part is limited. There are much more professional legal opinions about this. But Coinbase is a listed company that has MSB license, money services business licenses. In the U.S., you have to go state by state. This license is state-based. I believe there's 47, 48 states that require them. There's 3 states that doesn't. Binance US have done the same thing, right? So they went state by state. I think Binance US has 44 state licenses, and there's 3 or 4 states they don't operate, so they cannot accept users in those states. And that's as close to a licensed operator as you can get today in the US, based on my understanding. I don't think there is. I think there's a New York BIT license, which is like a crypto-specific license, but there's no other crypto licenses, as far as my understanding. So that's the state of play in the US today, based on my layman understanding. So whether that's sufficient or not, legally, that's a different question to answer. Whether that's a most advanced regulatory regime for crypto, definitely not. I think if you look at other countries like here, Bahrain, or other places, the regulatory clarity and framework are far more advanced, and they're far more sophisticated, and they're far more appropriate for this new technology. So so I think different countries at different stages. That's the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned obviously it sort of varies a lot across the world. Where we are now, Bahrain is sort of a registered crypto trading platform here, and it also managed to launch a sort of partnership with EasyPay to do payments in late 2022. So, how extensively can people use crypto in a place like Bahrain?
I think we do see significant increases in use of crypto especially when there's a fiat partner, like what we call fiat currency, traditional currency fiat on or off ramp, especially also tied together with a payment solution. The usage just increases over time. I think it is a much cheaper way to do transactions. It is a much cheaper, a lower cost technology to facilitate all of these transactions. So we do see a significant increase when we have that local support, and also especially with the regulatory clarity that we can achieve here, um, it's increasing quite nicely. Yeah.
And also in Europe, there are these sort of new micro rules that are coming into place, and they should make it possible for an exchange like Binance to sort of register in one country and then sort of serve the entire market. You've said on Twitter that you're in the process of sort of adapting your business to make it possible to register. So what are the sticking points? What's that process like? What are you having to do to sort of make yourself compliant with what they want?
Yeah. So MiCA is actually a good process. That means like one process covers 27 countries in Europe, right? So and we are working very closely with a number of regulators there: France, Spain, Italy, etc. So any one of them, so we have registrations in all three places, and I think there's also Swiss and a couple other places. I think we have 5 or 6 licenses in registrations in the EU. And then Mika today, I think, is projected to kick in sometime mid to late 2024. It may get delayed, it may not. So once that process kicks in, then one of those licenses should suffice. So we're working very closely, and there have been debates about. I think the very early draft of Mika, like they did not want to have USD stablecoin based liquidity allowed in Europe. We're like, that's not a very smart idea because the EU-based stablecoins are very small. They don't have enough liquidity. If you block 90% of the liquidity from the entire continent, your prices are going to be worse. So you should allow US dollar-based stablecoins liquidity. They actually changed that. So they now the recent drafts allow that. And there are some, like, I don't know all the details, but that's one of the details I kind of came across. So it does show that they are receptive to feedback, which is a very positive sign. So I think it's mostly final drafts now. So, but it's just waiting for the time to kick in. So I think we as a business is quite ready for that. Yeah.
And in terms of the things that you might need to do to sort of be able to get those registrations, is it KYC, AML? Sort of what are the things that Binance would need to work on?
Yeah, so typically my sort of Norman layman not expert understanding is typically the registration is the first step, which we have completed with the local VASP VASP licenses, VASP registrations. The registration typically requires review of KYC, AML, anti-money laundering processes. Whereas the full license requires a lot more, like the entire business, right? They look at your wallet infrastructure, your security, I don't know, your customer support policies, your refund policy. So they look at the whole business. So that's like a very simplistic understanding that I have about that process. There's a lot more details to it. Yeah.
And I guess, so these licenses that you get in Bahrain or potentially sort of in Europe, I guess they serve two functions. One is that regulators can, feel comfortable that bad things aren't happening on the platform, money laundering, terrorist financing, all those kinds of things. And then for users, there's that sort of regulatory stamp of approval that the exchange probably isn't being run the way that some of the ones that have blown up were. Is that the sort of best solution for customers to have faith in exchanges getting these licenses, or what else is there that you think can sort of encourage trust?
Yeah. So I think to earn trust, there's probably it's like an onion, right? There's many layers that you have to build. I think regulatory compliance is a key thing. It is very important. But also like having a track record of being secure, always service your clients, having the reputation in the industry, having other users validating your services and your trustfulness is important. So there's many different aspects, but I think regulatory compliance is a key one. And also with the regulatory compliance, also unlocks other partners working with you, especially from traditional financial industries. So then this way we can bridge the two industries together. So that's very important too. So the trust is built over over a long period of time. It can be broken very quickly, but it can only be slowly built over time. There's many aspects to it. Yeah.
Okay, and so I guess it is possible for many more crypto exchanges to get these kinds of licenses and be sort of considered safe. I guess we'll see how things play out in the US. Perhaps that won't be the sort of nexus of crypto going forwards if things continue the way they are. Is that what you expect?
Yeah, I think right now U.S. is a little bit distracted because there's an election coming up in the next year. So I think a lot of the focus might be dragged back to that. But crypto is a topic for elections, right? So I think most crypto people are single issue voters. So if you like crypto, they're gonna vote for you. If you don't like crypto, they're not gonna vote because it deals with money. It impacts their finances. So, and the crypto population is growing. So I think US today does not have the most leading crypto regulations in the world, but US does have a very strong base in terms of innovations, talent, VC infrastructure, etc. So once they focus on crypto and put the proper guardrails in, they could actually catch up pretty quickly with the rest of the world. They do have the talent pool. They do have all of that strong base. So it's not to say that U.S. is never going to catch up on crypto. But today, in this year, given the shutdown of the three banks that are crypto friendly, given all these other issues that happen, they are a little bit behind on the curve on crypto regulations. Yeah.
We focused a lot on the sort of the criticisms that sort of there are bad actors in crypto and that it's sort of unregulated, and not so much on some of the other criticisms that are it's not useful for that much, or there aren't any sort of real use cases. In particular, I've been talking to a lot of sort of people who say, oh, AI has come along and changed the world in a year, and crypto's had sort of 10 and not really, or more than that, and not done anything sort of real. What would you say to sort of those critics?
Some of those critics are pretty valid. There's always valid points there. They're not 100% valid. I think crypto is still very useful in many things that traditional currencies couldn't do. Again, like global fundraising, right? Global remittances cross borders. So there's a lot of those stuff that crypto is good for. But crypto this year especially feels a little bit boring to the point in the sense that there's no new projects coming up with like really fancy use cases, wide adoption, etc. So this year is kind of a recovery year from last year. So it felt a little bit boring. So there's people get into meme coins, people get into like other things which are slightly harder to understand. They're fun, but like they don't feel as a strong utility backed. But we shouldn't say that just erases all of crypto. Internet had issues in 1995, right? So there's a lot of credit card fraud, shipping doesn't work, so e-commerce doesn't work. The speed wasn't good, so video conferencing doesn't work. People will say, hey, internet is a fad, it's useless. It used to be called the World Wide Wait. Right? So I think for the guys who are old enough, we remember. But guess what? 20 years later, the technology does improve incrementally over time. But now, 20 years later, we look back, internet is very useful. Any country that has the internet industry has benefited dramatically. I think the U.S. Right? So if you look at all the internet tools we use, Twitter, Google, Facebook, etc., they're all based in the U.S. What if other countries have those bases in their local economies? They will have huge positive impacts for their local economies. So I think we look at crypto just because this year or this past little while is a little bit boring, relatively speaking, doesn't mean the technology is not useful. The technology is still being developed. So there are cycles in the markets. Yeah.
Crypto being boring is maybe a bit of a relief after last year, but
it's better than the excitement we got last year. Yeah.
Okay, Binance, throughout its history has sort of hoovered up market share. It's become sort of by far the sort of biggest crypto exchange, and it's sort of head and shoulders above its competitors now in terms of size and scale. What is sort of motivating you from here? What does the future look like for Binance?
I think my motivation is just to know that I'm doing the most I'm doing, and I and we are doing the most we can to make a positive impact on other people's lives, right? So I don't want to say, look, we want to save the world or anything like that. I think everyone, their mission in life should be like you do the maximum you can for the positive effects. And if your ability is high, then you can do a lot more positive impact. If your ability is slightly lower, then you do a small bit. We should contribute to the world, right? So we shouldn't be taking things away from the world. So And luckily for me and for Binance, we're in a position that we're in a position to make a very positive impact for hundreds of millions of people today, and hopefully billions of people soon. And that's meaningful enough already. We don't have to be the biggest in the world. We don't have to be the richest in the world. We don't have to be the most handsome. We don't have to be any of that. We just do what we can, and we should be fortunate to know that we're in the position to lucky enough to be able to contribute to the world, and that's already very I'm already very thankful for that.
Well, I think that is sort of roughly all we have time for, and that is a great message to end on. I think this fly has been bothering us all session, but we and the fly can now get off the stage. Susie, it was such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for answering my questions, and yeah, it was wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, Alice. Yeah, cheers.
Thank you so much.
I guess go this way, this way.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats for the next session. Thank you.